Ow. Boom, 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 everybody. I hope I am streaming. I got a message when I started this, so let me see if we're rocking and rolling. Happy Saturday to you. My name is Don Terrell. I want to welcome you to another great episode. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm streaming. So we're rocking and rolling. I want to welcome you to another great episode of The Color of Motion. Well, I say, hey, stories come in all shades. And I highlight people of color and diverse backgrounds in the industry of motion graphics, animation, visual effects, cartoons, and comics. This space that, after 5 years, I'm ecstatically crazy about. And speaking of that, like I said, we are celebrating our 5 years of doing The Color of Motion. So I got to get a little confetti going in there. But you know the drill. Hop into the comments, say, hey, where you tuning in from, while I make sure that we are, rocking and rolling like we should be on all our channels here, for sure. But again, I want to make sure that, we are going live. Looks like we are there. Let me make sure we are rocking on YouTube. We are. We are here every Saturday afternoon, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, live on the YouTube channel, Facebook, the Facebook group for the show, the website for the show, and LinkedIn as well. But I always encourage everybody to hop on over to the YouTube channel, subscribe, hit the bell notification, comment on the show and the channel. That definitely helps the algorithm. Again, we definitely want you to be a part of the community. We're looking to grow. We're looking to really help and serve the community, bring you valuable information, and a little fun along the way as well there too. What else? Also, I want to thank, I guess I can stop the confetti. I like the confetti, but I guess I can stop it there. Also, I want to thank sponsor for today's show, DG Graphics. They do all our graphics, overlays, animations. They basically help us look good. So if you're a brand, a business that's looking to level up your content, create messages that connect directly with your audience visually, then you definitely want to reach out to them. DG Graphics, we always thank them for sponsoring the show and being part of the community as well. All right. I think we are about ready to, get the show going. What do you say? I'm super excited about this episode. I hope you are as well. And with that, I think we can get the ball rolling, eh? Yes, we are back, and I hope, like I said, you are as excited about my next guest as I am. We were having a long interview within an interview before the show started, so we're having a great conversation. So I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation on. But my next guest is from West London, Hayes in Middlesex. His interest in animation initially came to him when his dad brought him the Jungle Book. Then as he got older, he started looking for creative courses in animation and ended up going to the university and studying art. His passion is to teach and pass on his experience for the next generation of students coming into film and games as a character animator. Please, everybody help me welcome my very special guest and friend, Mr. Opi Chaggar. Opi!
Thank you, man. Oh, thank you, man. Thank you for having me. What an intro. I'm
Oh
gonna use it. I'm
man.
gonna steal that.
I always like to say, hey, we make our guests feel like the superstars that they are. So our goal is to put you in the spotlight and really share, your journey. And like I was saying just a minute ago, we were having a full fun conversation before the show even started. So I'm looking forward to, continuing on with that. And I always like to, start out with, you initially said it kind of started with the Jungle Book for you. What was it about the Jungle Book that caught your attention or that sparked that initial love for you?
Yeah, for me it was. I was looking at it and Jungle Book. I was thinking, how are these characters moving, and how are they conveying that emotion? I mean, how are they doing this basically? How are the animators doing this? So then that kind of initially sparked it. And I loved the story and everything. And that was when I was 14. And I never really thought about, is there a course or anything like that. And then I did my GCSEs here, which was an exam, the general certificate of school education, which is around when you're 16 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the equivalent of in the States, but yeah, from there, my teacher said to me, okay, you have to do your A levels. So that's like about a couple of years. So when you're 18, depending on the A level grades, you get to uni. So those A levels, I did RIT, and I remember the science teachers there because coming from a immigrant background
Yeah.
family, my mom, my dad, and they wanted me to be a doctor, a lawyer, or accountant.
Yeah, something practical.
And then my dad had a heart attack when he found out I wanted to be an artist. Oh no, what is this? Hey, you know. But then, what is this art? It's like stupid. Do a proper grade. I was like, Dad, man, but my mind, it's not. It's creative and practical. So anyway, to be honest, you know what? My dad's actually all right, man. He was very supportive. My parents were both
Oh
very
man.
supportive. You can
Oh
go and
man.
do it.
Well, but which brings me to the point. Do you think they he thought that because obviously in coming from an Indian background, animation, and I have this kind of conversation with a lot of the guests that I have it on from Africa. Over here in the States, it's different. Animation is just you grow up, and so you can kind of get it. Your parents may, kind of look at you a little sideways, but they understand that animation is a big industry. So there is a job, you can get a job. They may not, see how, but they understand that, here in the States, animation is a big industry. But it seems like over, in different countries and continents, if it's not the norm, it takes a little more convincing because, the older generation, your parents and grandparents may not have thought, like you said, animation, the person can make a living and be happy doing that. So do you feel like it's just the fact that that's going to change as, the industry grows and gets more exposure within, the country where your parents came from and in other countries where it's not so prevalent like it is here in the States or, just big like it is here in the States?
Yeah, yeah. When I got the so basically when I in 2007 to 2010, I went to the States. So and when I came back, because my dad realized that he's got a job and everything and he's moved to the States. When I came back, he started taking the credit for it, like saying telling them, "Oh yeah, I told him to, I told him." But
I
no, coming back
encouraged him to
to
do this.
I go, that's right, Dad. You told me to do it. No, but the thing is, it's funny you mentioned that because last week I went to in Manchester University. I gave a talk there 3 weeks ago, but last week they had a people of color in play
Mm-hmm.
talk. And two of the girls, the ladies, I should say, sorry, are from. They were from. One of them works here. For she was from Singapore. Both Indian. One worked at Affinity Ward. Uh, Forgive me, I forgot their names, but I can give the details later to them. But she's a character artist there. She's done really well. And the presentations were all people from diverse backgrounds, people of color in play.
Yeah.
Really good, and they're gonna start doing that every year, talks like that. And you can see how it's changed. It's changing now. Even if you look at Scope, I worked for Scopely on Monopoly Go. There's this, they had redundancies, but there's an office in India, Scopely one. Zynga, you know. So they're all opening up there, and yeah, animation is massive in India at the moment, you know. And the before you could say 10, 15 years ago, the quality is, you know, not that good. But now you got, you know, there's a creature animator, Donu, who's a friend of mine. He's got the Creature Workshop, which a
Yeah.
lot of great students are bringing in. They're doing like top creature animation work. You know, he's worked for ILM on all these massive companies. You know, so you can see how, in the old days there was the gatekeepers, isn't it? Like it's only these.
Yeah.
Oh, only we're gonna do animation, but it's, you know, the internet has made it brilliant, you know, for everyone to
Yeah.
learn. And now you've got so many great schools out there too,
Yeah.
and it is being more recognized. Yeah, you're right. My parents are kind of seeing like, and animation is everywhere, you know. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to kind of touch on, your schooling, because you did get your degree, when you went to Tesside, and then you went to Bournemouth and got your degree, and then went on the animation mentor. Um, what was kind of your experience? And I'm assuming the first two were like brick and mortar schools that you went to, and animation mentor was online. Was
yeah,
that
yeah.
the thing? I'm kind of curious what your experience between the two styles,
Mm.
you know, what you pulled out of all your learning, and whether you got, more targeted learning from Animation Mentor as opposed to the brick and mortar schools, and whether you feel like degrees, unless you're teaching in the industry, a degree really plays into you getting a job as opposed to, the work that you do.
Mm.
And you touched on it, and you touched on it, when we were talking earlier, as far as just the cost of going to a, student loan, going to a brick and mortar school. And now, like you said, we got a lot of schools that are online that are cropping up, such as Animation Mentor, and other schools that are giving you, I guess, what I thought or think, and you can answer it, a little more targeted training as opposed to going to, say, a brick and mortar school. Although, I know a lot of people that have gone to Savannah, and, Savannah gets a lot of praise for the education that they're giving. But, most schools, you kind of have to, you don't get that specialized kind of training that you may get, say, from Animation Mentor or Noman type of thing. What are your thoughts on just the education that you've had as far as going to those different schools, and the education that's available now for artists coming out?
Yeah, yeah. So Teesside, I got to say, at my Teesside uni, we use the software called Exercise, which is Softimage, which is
Mm-hmm.
outdated now, right?
That's where I started on. So I have
But
to say
it,
that turned it off for me. I will say Softimage kind of just killed my love for 3D. It was a little way technical, way more
yeah,
technical for me at the time coming in.
yeah, yeah. I did like the interface. It was nice, like cloud buttons they had on, you know. But it was built for animation, but they discontinued that, and then I didn't really learn much at uni, to be honest.
Uh-huh.
When I was doing my bachelor's in Teesside, um, it was more very much self-taught. So I was
Yeah.
learning the concept of 3D software and everything. Then when I wanted to go Bournemouth first, but I didn't get the A level grade. So I managed to get a good degree. I got like a 2-1, which got me into the master's program in Bournemouth. And I got to say, there were people from all different backgrounds doing the masters there. You had people from a biology background or completely photography background, just stuff that was completely not to do with animation. And one of
Yeah.
my friends, who's actually um, she's a illustrator for kids books, Tanya Fenton. She actually worked with Richard Williams on the Thief and the Cobbler.
Oh
The
wow.
Richard Williams did the
Yeah,
yeah, and
that
then when
did
I
the
was
survival kit. Yeah.
exactly, and then when I moved to the States in 2007, she came in 2009 to visit Richard Williams' daughter, Claire Williams. She said, "Come to Santa Monica, and I'll introduce you." So we're kind of, she knows me now. We met, you know. So it was nice, like, to chat to her and like, but it was good for that. The masters, you know, you got in touch with all these different people, and I'm still friends with Tanya now. She's a close friend of mine, and uh, I just think with online animation mentor, I would advise people who want to do it is to learn Maya first. Really learn Maya, because when I was on there, I finished my masters in 2005. Animation Mentor started in, I think it started in 2007, and I joined it. Or did it start in 2006? And I joined it like in 2007. And I think because I was familiar with Maya and I knew about the tools and everything, and I had 1 year's experience. I was at Ninja Theory working on Heavenly Sword, so I was with some really good animators there. I was being mentored. One animator in particular who I became very close friends with at the time was Ricky Wood. He's if you check him out, he's amazing. The guy's amazing animation he's done, and he kind of helped me. He was helping me. I was mentoring me, and I was and Guy Midgley, who was the lead
Hmm.
there at Ninja Theory. He's still there now. He's been there for like 25 years. He was a very good lead, one of the best leads I've worked at, and he would just tell us how to, get the right posing, dynamic posing, and all that. And the thing with Animation Mentor is because I had that background already, familiar with animation stuff. The mentors every week you'd get feedback, and the mentors were just really good. I was lucky. I had one mentor. You always get that one teacher that makes you something click,
Yeah.
and that was Steve Cady. And I always say this to him, even like I message him every now and then as well. So if it wasn't for you, he just made, because when you learn animation, the first thing they teach is the bouncing ball.
Yeah.
But I was always thinking, why am I learning the bouncing ball? I want to animate characters, and it took me about 5 6 years to get it. Like after then when Steve he's giving me some feedback on my animation, and he said, you just got to make the hips. He was Canadian, but he goes, you just got to make the hips go like this, like. And something just clicked in me. Ever since then, I've had like it's been a joy to animate. I know it's still tough. Some shots that you do in it, but
Yeah.
when you understand the bouncing ball, it just makes things a lot more clearer than you.
So because I mean, I haven't, like I said, been under any tutelage or anything like that, but I've done, the animating bouncing ball. Obviously, like you said, that's the first thing you do when you're learning animation. But what was that thing that clicked? Was it the okay? I got a bouncing ball, but within this bouncing ball, I can make it as light as a feather, or it's just the way that I animate. What was that thing that clicked for you that your mentor just it got finally helped you to click with you?
It was basically seeing, because when I was in my degree, my animation would always be like jittery and everything, and I would always get frustrated. I go, why isn't it smooth? And then in Maya, there's a motion trail tool that when you select the hips, you go to motion trail, and it shows the trajectory of the hips.
Yeah.
So and it's got points everywhere. That point is basically the bouncing ball. That's what you track. If that's not smooth, then your whole animation is going to be not smooth. If your hips aren't, center of gravity isn't working properly, then everything else is going to, it's a layered approach to have in
Yeah.
animation, but a lot of animators use. But they animate the center of gravity first, along with the strong poses. So you might do a jump where you have like a jump, crouch here, then a jump up. But as you're posing everything, you're looking at the trajectory of the hips and also the wrists and the feet. Are they following a smooth arc? That's what clicked for me. That point as the
So is
bouncing
that
ball.
how you start your process animating the hips, or where do you start when you're starting to animate a character? Are there certain things that okay, I'll start with this because this is how I work through the process of animating.
Yeah, no. The first thing I do, the very first thing is okay. If I get a animation to do, I would always plan. I would get off the computer first and plan. All right, I'd film myself. Could be a free hit combo, anything. According to video games, obviously, Pixar is those animators. They take acting and all that
Acting,
emotion.
yeah, yeah,
But I'm more body mechanics and stuff because of video games. Sorry, excuse me.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I would film myself front and side. And references there just to like you're not copying. It's not never about copying the reference. It's all about where's the weight on the character. Because when as humans when we look at something, we can immediately tell something's off.
yeah.
Because we look at humans every day, isn't it? So if you're walking and your weight is on the opposite leg and not on the leg you're stepping on, that's taking the weight. You're going to be off balance, right? So reference are always used for, okay, what is the character's position after the attack? Where's the weight? Okay, let me just make sure when I pose the character, the weight is on the right side. Pose it how you obviously you pose it clearly how you want, but you're just looking at the way the hips are moving and where the weight is being transferred. That's what makes your animation believable.
Yeah.
So after you've studied the reference, I look at the hip and shoulder positions, see how they are, the spine, and then you're just basically putting in your poses, and just making sure everything's just clarity, clarity, clarity. Your key poses are all clear. You can use your reference as a lead, but then really exaggerate and really be conscious of the line of actions going through the arm,
Yeah.
C shapes in the spine, the reversals going on this way, your spine like this, and then obviously the other way. Contrast is what I learned from one of my mentors at Animation Mentor. It was contrast, right? So when you're crouching in a jump, think of that whole body shape as a ball, and then when you're so that's when you're starting the jump, and when you're taking off, think of it as a rectangle, and then when you're in the apex, think of it as a circle again, depending on the pose, and then as the body comes down, it's a rectangle again, right? Then when you land, it compresses, squash and stretch.
Yeah.
Doesn't literally mean stretching the body. It means like the shapes. Animation is all contrast, right? So if you can get those shapes in, that's what the eye will see. So contrast, I would say, take that into account when you're animating poses, big, exaggerated. One of the principles of animation, exaggeration. Always
Exaggeration.
push your poses more,
Yeah.
even if it breaks even if it doesn't break the body,
Breaks
you
the,
can always
and it's
pose it.
funny because when you see like some of the behind the scenes of some of the animations, like I said, like they'll say, sometimes we have to break it. You won't see it, but it's broken because we
You'll feel
needed to
it.
do
You'll feel it.
this
Yeah,
type
exactly.
of thing. Mr. Dewan, I appreciate you, brother. Happy Saturday to you. He says happy Saturday to
I
you
know,
there,
right?
Opie.
I know, mate.
Mr. DeMille, I knew you would get something out of this. It always comes back to the
Right,
bouncing
yeah.
ball. Yeah, the fundamentals and principles carry through a lot of what you do, which brings me, it was going to come up sometime, somewhere in the conversation of AI and the thing with AI, and I'm curious what your thoughts of as far as what you do as a character animator and feeling like will AI can AI come close? Will it? Do you see it at some point down the line? I don't think it is now, but I have my personal opinion. But you in what you do as a character animator, obviously you see a lot of people using AI to, oh, I can create this animation in AI and just run with it type of thing. What's your thoughts on just where AI is in animation, character animation, where you see it going, and is it something that you're behind, not behind, type of thing?
Mm. Yeah, AI is, you know what, it's different because AI gets smarter, right, as the years go. It's going to get smarter and smarter. But I was talking to an art director and he said, I told a prompter 50, over 50 times to change an image. But whenever we would change it, something else would come up. So the thing is, with games, it's so specific, the cogs that are moving the game director's vision is so specific that I'm yet to see AI make a full game by itself. It's just, director's vision is just completely. It's too collaborative. The process. There's too
Yeah,
many moving parts in video games, and you've got the mechanics, game mechanics, and design, and you know, co- even you get concept art. But like I said, the art director said I had to get a concept artist to come in who did exactly what I wanted him to do.
yeah,
But then we look at LinkedIn at the moment, Studio Ghibli, with
yeah,
all the AI
yeah,
art going on. He's doing some lawsuits with all that now. He
yeah,
said it's an insult to life. Miyazaki said that's an insult to life itself. That's just
Yeah.
what he said. So I think there's going to be issues with copyrights and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But people are arguing, well, you can't copyright a pixel. But then you're like, okay, but where's AI getting all this stuff from? It's getting it from the World Wide Web, from existing
Yeah.
concept art, isn't it? So, and also Sucha, what's his name? Sucha Balaji, who apparently committed suicide from
Yeah.
OpenAI. Remember
Yeah.
that? He was
Yeah.
found
I
dead
heard
in
about
the
that.
apartment. And then what's was it Poo Ponima? His mum was on
Yeah.
Tucker Carlson's doing a podcast. His mum believed that there's no way, because when you know someone, they've got certain patterns. There's no way he took his own life. So
Yeah.
and this is really strange because it was. I don't know if he did a talk with Washington Post or New York Post, or was he about to do it when he was found dead? But he was talking about copyright. Like he was actual engineer
Mm.
in OpenAI, and
Yeah.
he was saying this is copyright infringement. So I think that's going to be an issue in the future. Like
It's
if it really,
it still feels like I said. Obviously, they still got obviously a lot of law logistics to work out, and it's almost still like the Wild West where they don't have like really solid laws and copyright laws to really protect creators and people and stuff like that. So it's still really early in the game, I think, with AI. But obviously, like you said, it's something it's not really. I don't think it's going anywhere. So how do
yeah,
I?
at the moment, yeah, it's.
Yeah,
I think in games in particular, because it's quite a collaborative process, and you have to work with programmers and mechanics and stuff like that, and designers,
yeah,
and their game vision. I think there's too many moving parts, but it's different because it's learning. AI is learning a lot.
yeah.
But like you're saying, it's early stages. It's I don't know, another
It,
five,
it,
10 years, we'll see. But
well, like I said, even a year, as fast as AI is, getting, especially generative AI, and like I said, now video is starting to get into it. Initially it was just artwork and stuff like that, but now you're getting video, and it's just getting, like you said, it's learning every second and every day. It's just getting kind of better and better. But I'm on that. I'm on that side that I don't care how good it gets. It'll never take that human experience. It can never duplicate the human experience. That's
yeah,
the way I see it. You can get close, and obviously you can get close, but obviously a human is going to have to start the process of AI. I don't think AI is ever going to get to that autonomous point to where it can bring the human experience in any type of creative work. That's just me, but
no, no,
I
I
think
agree.
AI is great as a tool in certain things, and
Yeah,
using it for certain things, type of thing. But you know, as far as
I think a lot of the mundane tasks will probably be
yeah,
given
it's
to AI.
great for those mundane tasks,
Yeah,
iterating ideas, maybe even sparking ideas, but you know, to the point of what Demia was talking about, the principles. I don't think it'll ever grasp the simple principles that come along with, you know, learning, animation, or just the subtle things that you do in your artwork and creating your artwork. Those little subtle things, I don't think it'll ever really, grasp. It'll get you 80% of the way there, but maybe 70. So, uh, for is your preference, because you worked on film, but you like games? Is it one or the other? Do you you particularly like games, and what games, and what is it about games that animating in games more so than say animating characters maybe for film that you like more than the other, or does it really matter for you?
to be honest, the film stuff really was when I first got into um, my first job in London. So I
Mm.
didn't really animate in film. It was more rotoscoping stuff. I was
Okay.
doing stuff like that. It was junior work. Games, I think because film was a bit, at the time for me, it looked a bit higher in fire at will kind of thing, you know, like you do the project, and games kind of felt a bit more spread and a bit more secure for me. And I like body mechanics animation, you know.
Yeah.
I know they have it in film, but I like the kind of stylized, you know, the film was realistic stuff. Um, but I think because I got into animation because I wanted to get out of that, because I see realism every day. For me, it was an escape to get out and animate cartoony stuff and stylized
Yeah.
stuff. So that drew me more towards games, and I just stuck in there. You know, I did animation mentor. I did a few acting shots, but I didn't really pursue them as much because I was more into the games industry. I was just doing a lot of like, you know, like runs, walks, idols, and combat stuff like that. So I was,
Yeah.
and I felt a bit comfortable in there, you know. And you get a bit into your comfort zone, and but even now, it's been what 20 years in the gaming industry. But now, I mean, you get to do some acting in cutscenes and stuff like that. But I just prefer it, to be honest, in video
Yeah.
games. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
I know some people prefer it in film, but
Yeah.
maybe I should pursue more of the acting stuff. To be honest, I didn't pursue it as much either. I think mainly because I thought of the job security. But
Mm.
maybe I shouldn't have thought like that. You know, maybe I should just thought I should just, you know, be
Well, I
the
mean,
best.
so you would say, because it's funny, and I don't know, like I said, it's just you're seeing a lot of studios, whether they're film studios, game studios, you know, letting people go or lay it off or this and that. Do you feel like the gaming industry is a little more stable than the film industry when it comes to animating and you know, kind of creators being able to get into a job or position?
You know what? When I started in 2005, and it was a lot different then. You know, the competition wasn't as much. And to be honest, you could kind of get into the industry with okay animation, you know, and then
Yeah.
you could get your break. To be honest, when I was at Ninja Theory, when I graduated from my masters, I didn't get a job for 9 months. So I worked in London for free in post production houses uh, as a runner, as a gopher, right? And all the London studios work with each other. So I drop off negatives to another film company for grading, and then I drop off my showreel just to say, hey man, is there any jobs? I'm an animator, you know.
Yeah.
And when I when I got a job at Ninja Theory, when I applied, the art director called me in, even though I applied for a junior animator position. I wasn't good at animating. I just graduated. He said, "Can you come in?" Because I moved back in with my parents after my masters. I was working on my short films. So I was modeling and texturing, and he
Yeah.
said, "Can you come in as an environment artist?" So my actual first job was as an environment artist. But I said to him, I want to animate. He said, look, come in as an environment artist so you get your foot in the door. And it's the best advice he gave me. And he said, 6 months in, we'd put you in with a designer and you can do placeholder animations. And he kept his word. That's how I got my break.
Mm.
So games, I would say now, because of the schools, great schools out there, you know, I animate, animation mentor, anim school, Goldman workshop. There's loads of, you know, you got
Yeah.
creature workshop. There's loads of great schools out there. And
Yeah.
um, the competition is higher, but also it's also who you know too. You need networking. You know, I know a lot of people who get jobs because they know other people, and I'll be honest, I saw other animators are better, but they got the job. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and I've seen that happen. So networking, knowing the right people. Also, your work too. Your work has to speak as well. You know, if you're really good, you will get a job. But you know what? Now with all these layoffs going on, what it is a lot of senior people who are taking mid-level jobs as well now.
Yeah.
They're getting senior roles too, but there's a lot of experienced people out of work
Yeah.
who, who
I've
are.
seen that too. A lot of people that have been in the industry a long time are
It's
are,
changed,
are feeling it as well. You know.
yeah, it's changed a lot since last year. 15,000 jobs?
Yeah.
Never been like that in my 20 years. I've never seen it like that.
Yeah.
Some are saying, it's. I mean, they said because of COVID, people, the companies invested a lot in projects because people
Yeah.
were at home playing games. But
Yeah.
then when everything went back to normal, they realized they couldn't sustain the project, so they had to let
Yeah.
go. And also with the market crashes happening, layoffs are predicted. They're gonna happen.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll take another this end of this year for things to. I think jobs are starting to come now. It's taken a bit of time. I don't know with graduates. I think it's companies will always need graduates, so I don't think graduates should worry. Because they need juniors for the future, so they need
Yeah.
to bring them in and train them as well. So if
Well,
you're a
what do you
graduate,
well, what do you see is the thing, or what do you tell people or students just coming into the industry that they need to focus on or work on, or what do you see as some of the things that they may not be getting, they're just not getting it, and this is what you tell them. This is what you need to really kind of focus on if you want to really kind of gain traction in the industry doing character animation. What do you see the students coming out with?
yeah, no, it's a good question because last month like we were chatting earlier, there was 3 talks I gave at universities across the UK, and they were all in their final projects. Excuse me. And what it is with students, and it's really good what they're doing. They get over ambitious with their final projects,
Mm,
and I always say to them, look, when I looking 20 years back, I said, look, I was the same. Really, just try and focus on even if it's one like combat scene or something, but really get it polished to the max. You would land a junior job if you got one scene which is just properly polished and the mechanics and weights are all right, than just a rough short
yeah.
film which is 3 minutes long, and it's too much work being taken on with the amount of time they have. And I would also teach them. I explain to them, like, do work. I teach them to put work into the show reel, what I'm doing in the industry. I said, do those run cycles, right? Do those 3 hit combos, 4 hit combos, depending on the company you want to. For example, if you want to go to like Ninja Theory, they were back then when I was there, it was heavily on combat. So if you had a good combat reel, you're likely to get a job. So it depends. If you got one company that's very much stylized, do stylized animation. Go to LinkedIn, look at the people who are working in your company, look at their show reels,
Yeah.
look at the games they're working on. What kind of styles of games are they working on? And cater your reel to that if you really
Yeah.
want to work for that. When
Do
I
you
was, yeah,
do you see
sorry.
not enough students doing the research of the company that they want to go after? Not putting in the
Uh,
research to, like you said, they just put a general
hmm,
reel together when they're applying for a character animation or applying for something totally different, and they just put a general as opposed to thinking forward enough to saying, okay, this is the position I'm going for, let me put a reel that's kind of tailored to this or
hmm.
this or this that really stands out and does it. Do you see that a lot of students, they come out and just kind of generalize as opposed to researching and really putting the time in the companies that they're applying to?
Yeah, yeah. It depends what school you go to. So if you go to Animation Mentor, I animate and
Yeah,
they have proper modules that are like game
yeah,
mechanic modules. So what you're doing there it's going to be part of your show reel, and that is going to tailor for a game studio. Not maybe the specific one they want to work on, but it will land you something in games if the quality is good enough. Um, but yeah, no, generally I do see that the final films at the universities in the UK. I can only speak about the UK, and they're films that are short films, but they're not really that short, but they're over ambitious,
yeah,
which is it's fine, group projects, but I always say, quality, time is quality,
yeah,
spend a little bit of time on a little thing and make it, really polish it and make it better, because you're more likely to get a breakthrough junior job that way.
yeah,
Even if
yeah,
it's a simple character, if they can see you animate a simple character really good, they're gonna think, wow, if he can do an animation on a simple character, it's just imagine if we gave him this character or her this character.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
So don't be over ambitious. I'm saying because when you got like 10 weeks to do a project and you got like 3 minute short film, that's a lot of animation.
That's a lot of
So
work. Yeah,
you know,
you don't realize it until you get into it.
10
It's a
seconds.
lot. It is a lot. Mr. Dewan has a question here. Uh, from your experience, were there any challenges you face in rigging CG. And I was going to ask you about that too. CGI character models for animation, and what tips would you share about rigging if one is struggling with it? So as an animator, I know there are some animators that, like I said, I guess they're familiar enough with rigging to know whether, okay, they get this rig, it's working for them or not, but they're not like riggers per se. That's not their job, you know? So for you, do you rig? Well, I would assume there's somebody that's rigging, and then you get handed the character with. Oh, are you okay? Well, I mean, if it's a big enough or small enough company, I would guess they would have somebody specifically, you know, rigging. You know, and maybe it's different with a game studio as opposed to a film studio type of thing, as well. But for you, which I was going to ask you, was that something else that you needed to kind of get familiar with, or were you already familiar with the whole process of, okay, I want to animate this character, so I need to build it, you know, texture it, rig it, you know, I'm familiar enough to where I'm comfortable animating this character?
Yeah, you know, when I was at uni, I had to learn all that rigging and everything and exercise. To be honest, because I just animate now. We big companies, you're right, they're pigeonholed. You get pigeonholed into rigging and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with painting weights and all that, you know, but it really isn't my thing. When I went to an independent company, Lava Labs, they wanted me to rig. I said, look, I don't. They had all generalists there. I said,
Yeah.
I'm not rigging. I can only because the thing is, I need to do it. I need to know it 100%. Otherwise, I don't do it because I don't want to half kind of do
Yeah.
the job. I said, look, animation is all I know, man. You need to get someone else to do the rigging.
Yeah.
But the challenge. Sorry, I'm just looking at Barry's the question for me. What are the challenges facing rigging? You know, now you have like what is it? What is that one character skeleton? That skeleton, that
Uh,
3-1, isn't it? Now a lot of the company I was working for, Natural Motion, they used character skeleton, or I
oh,
forgot what it's called, but they used that for Star Wars Hunters, you know,
yeah.
and they just you just have
Yeah.
to just adjust the
Adjust it.
bone.
There's a lot of them now that have auto riggers that,
Yeah,
you know, for the independent one. I'm pretty sure like I said, the big ones and the big studios and the big game studios, obviously, they have people that are creating custom rigs for whatever it is that they're doing. But I think most animation software has some form or fashion of an auto rigger that'll, you know, quickly rig a character, and you can, you know, fine tune it or adjust it from there.
yeah, yeah.
It's
It's a whole art. It's an art in it. That's why it's a separate project. You know, it's an art in itself. Like last year, I there was a job opportunity in Saudi Arabia with a company called Sansoft. They reached out to me, and to be honest, I do regret it. I should have. They wanted me to do rigging.
oh,
I just said to my wife, look, maybe we should have I should have just gone for 3 years, made the money, come back, pay my mortgage off, you know. But a lot of the expats that go there, they got their own compound. They live with each other, European
yeah,
and
yeah.
American.
Wow. Okay.
But I'm sure there'll be other opportunities because there is a lot of stuff happening in Dubai and Saudi as well with games, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, Savvy just bought Scopely for 4.9 billion 2 years ago, and that's a
Mm,
Saudi Arabia company, you know. So they wanted me to rig. I said I can't do rigging, so I passed that opportunity. But I know I can't really honestly answer that question, very, because I'm not a rigging specialist. But
especially, you know, just
um,
enough to be dangerous.
I could do like one bone and put a cartoon bone in 3 bones.
I always say I don't think I could do it as a day in, day out job. I mean,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
it's a character that I built and I'm doing it, I could probably just sit through the rigging, but I don't think I would be able to do it as a job. That's what I
yeah,
do, rigging characters and things like that. It's just, yeah, I love it. With anything that you get into, you're gonna have to have an appreciation and a love for doing it. I don't think I could be a coder, you know, a coder
exactly.
type of
There's a
thing,
scripting and
you
everything,
know.
isn't it?
Some people don't like texturing or UV mapping. Other people do like it and they
Yeah.
get it type of thing.
I used to
So
enjoy that when I was environment artist. There's therapeutic, you know, lining up all the UVs and stuff. I was like, this is it's actually all right, you know. But you know what? When I was an environment artist, I would be doing that. but I would always be looking back at the animation team, you know. And what I would do at lunch, I would go with the animators, you know, and I would talk to them. So when you get into a position like that, you just remember, just use your initiative. You know, like, would you want to do, like, a lot of the QA people that come into the industry end up being designers and stuff, you know, because they got this. That's one way of getting into the industry if you haven't got a degree, you
Yeah.
know, Q&A. But when you do get in a Q&A, don't just be a Q&A, be active, you know, do your job, obviously, but go to the departments that you're interested in and
Yeah.
talk to them. A
Talk
lot
to
of them
them.
would love giving advice, you know, because you're playing on their egos, isn't it? They're like,
Yeah.
yeah. So really
Yeah.
show interest in what you want to do.
Yeah. And
I
like you
when I was at
said,
uni-
and like you said, getting to know people and make friends, it just greases the wheel when, you know, opportunities come up and I open up. It's just, oh, okay, I know him. He wants to do, you know, animating and that type of thing. So you definitely need to learn for that. And we're gonna take before we go deeper in it, for everybody who's just jumping in to the conversation. We've been having a fun conversation so far with my friend and guest, Mr. Opi Chaggar, senior character animator over in the UK. And we're going to take a quick look at his demo reel and then come back and dive into some more questions here. But let's take a quick look. Do some animation stuff. Like I said, some amazing work there. I'm going to jump back to this scene here. Uh, Obviously, mechanics, body mechanics, like you were saying, is a big thing for character animators, especially game animators, to know. Well, any animator that's doing film or game body mechanics and knowing how things, you know, play out. Mr. DeMille, exceptional gameplay animation. Love the hit combo work. He's a game animator there, so I knew he would enjoy it. So for sure.
Thank you. Thank you, mate. Thank you. We don't often get praises, do we, man? So I'll take those compliments.
Take it when you can, man.
Trying to remember the compliments and forgetting the insults. If you can figure that out, let me know. Yeah.
Mr. Barry Dewan,
Thank
Mr.
you. Thank
Dewan loves it. Great animation. Um, I'm curious for you. You know, what's been the biggest challenge? Because I know you said you started out, you know, on exercise, off the marge. I did too, and I know that was a big discouraging. That turned me off of animating for a while until I came across Lightwave. Then I came back to animation, you know, when I found Lightwave. So,
Wow,
but
lightweight, man.
but for you, which I loved Lightwave, and like I said, when Lightwave, when you know the makers of Lightwave left and created Modo, I moved over to Modo. I love using Modo. You know, there's
We're
this,
showing our age, man. Lightwave and exercise,
yeah,
man.
which Lightwave, what Modo was, they always touted it as Modo was what Lightwave, what they wanted Lightwave to be. because Lightwave seemed like two separate programs that sometimes worked together, sometimes didn't work together. But for me, it made it easy to grasp 3D, because I think Softimage overwhelmed, especially when they brought out the manuals. When they brought the manuals out, they were like, big thick books, and it was like eight or nine, big books sections. And I was like, I can't do this. This is like going back to school type of thing.
Yeah.
But for you, was it the learning of the software? What was the biggest challenge kind of as you were going through and getting into the industry and learning how to do game animation and character animation?
Don, I had the same problem with you with you in terms of exercise. I was always off put it, but mainly because of my understanding of it. I didn't understand the graph editor. I didn't understand nothing, and really, it came down to the teachers I had as well. They didn't. I don't think they understood back then. It was 2000, in the year 2000s is when I
Yeah.
when I did. If we look back now, I look back now. It was a very young industry back then.
Yeah.
It wasn't as professional either. It started getting better later. Um, the struggles, yeah, I had the same struggles that I didn't. I think when I was doing my masters, they were using exercise there as well.
Yeah.
We had a
Yeah.
good teacher there. I remember George Finch. He was a good teacher. He was very technical. He knew everything about exercise. That's where I started getting a bit familiar with the graph editor. So I,
Yeah.
I was
Well,
already familiar.
I think what turned me off was the fact that it seemed like CAD, really technical. And it wasn't, obviously, it felt like it was made by coders for coders. It wasn't made by artists for artists. That's, like I said, when Lightwave came along, it wasn't obviously as chock full. The interface wasn't as, full of stuff as
Mm.
Saltamage was, but it seemed like it was created by artists for
Mm.
artists, understood, what artists wanted to do and what, they needed to click. It just seemed
Or the
like,
coders,
it
yeah,
just
the
seemed like
coders knew what the
SSI
artist
was
wanted
more
to do.
coding, and if you could get into, I think it was Mel script. It was some kind of
That there
scripting
was a script.
language that you can use in XSI
Oh,
and software.
Visual Basic. There was
Yeah.
Visual Basic. Yes.
And it was just like, well, I mean, I get it, but for the person that just, is overwhelmed, it's like I said, it just seems like it's overwhelmed. So for me,
Yeah. Studio Max was another one which was okay. It was okay, but I could never get animating the biped system there. I
yeah,
modeled in Studio Max. I remember buying a book from Waterstones, which is like a Barnes and Noble's equivalent in the UK,
yeah,
and I did a bit. I did a The project was a little bar scene, American diner. I remember modeling in Studio Max, but really when I went on Ninja Theory, that's when I started learning Maya, and that's when I knew when I was in the industry. I thought, all right, I have to learn this now. I
yeah.
have to. So I
Well,
had some helping me out.
I'm curious now because we talked about this a little before we, were jumped on to do the show. We were talking about just the industry now and the times that we live in now as a creator. Do you see more creators going the indie route? And do you see that if that's where the big shift in the industry is going to come from, these small independent creators that are working on things and putting things out there?
Yeah, yeah. This goes back. You reminded me. This goes back when I was living in California from 2007 to 2010. Briefly, I was very lucky. I got a job in the States via LinkedIn in 2007. High Moon Studios was hiring a lot of people from Europe, and an agent from Vivendi said, "Oh, there's opening in San Diego. Do you want to try?" So that's how I got the job there. And I went to Comic Con. I used to go Comic Con every year because I was living in San Diego. It's only like half an hour, 45 minutes from me, the convention center, and we used to get free passes. And I went to a talk there by Ralph Bashki. I don't know if you're familiar, Ralph Bashki. He's
Mm.
the first guy to animate Lord of the Rings live motion and cartoony.
Oh wow.
But he only got up to the second film because he ran out of budget. But I was at that talk. It's on YouTube. If you type in Ralph Bakshi 2008, 2009, and we were all like, I only had what, 2 years experience in the game industry and animation. And he had a really good point. He said, you guys are all here wanting to work for Disney, Pixar, DreamWorks. He goes, I got no respect for you. Now he was proper blunt. He said, why don't 4 or 5 of you get together, live in your dad's garage, live off pizza for 1 year, make a film, and be millionaires? You got your computers doing it for you. Back in the old days, I had to do it all myself because you've got all the tools now, and it really made me think. And I don't know, man. I think for me it was that security, when you're a job, this and that.
Yeah.
But now, I think now what's happening because you've got Kickstarter crowdfunding, like we were talking about Cloud Imperium, which is not far from here in Manchester. They raised about 100 million
Yeah.
with crowdfunding. So, and also with like I was talking about the character I'm working on, like when I did the talk 2 weeks ago at Manchester, there was another lead designer there who just lost her job, and she's working on a film, her short film Sim. She was working on, sorry, a short game because she hasn't got no work. So I
Yeah.
think this is what's happening. I think the future is going to be more like community based, community funding, and we were talking about this earlier about when I was giving talks at universities. I would use Ralph Bakski's example to the students. I would say, look, why don't you get 6 of you, get one guy from concept art, one from programming, one from animation, environment art. There must be so many vacant rooms there in university.
Yeah.
Get one room, set up 6 desks. The university will get you 6 computers for you and make a game for your final project. And like you're saying, you were mentioning that, when they see this game, they will fund it. That game that came out last year, Black Myth, Wukong, that monkey game, the Black Myth in
Yeah.
China, Tencent, right? The story was the same. The guy was having the same problem. He hated working, right? He was doing overtime, too many hours. So he was making his own project. So he was making the game, Black Myth. And I remember on my YouTube channel, I was reviewing that game 7 years ago. No, sorry, 3 or 4 years ago. I was reviewing the demo. I thought this game looks really good if it comes out. And his story was he left the company he was working for, believe it was in China, and he started working on that demo. And his friend said, look, I'll give you 10 million to make the game. And then Tencent got in on it. When they saw it, they said, we'll give you 50, I think it was 60 million. And it made 2 billion in 2 months.
Wow.
60 million to make, and it made 2 billion. 10 million downloads. So I think that will be the future, man. And I think the other thing, especially from a diverse background, like you work on games that you don't really connect with sometimes. And a
Yeah.
lot of people just go off and do their own games with their own stories, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think everything's at our fingertips now. You want Unreal, like you're saying, it was free to download.
Yeah.
You have some great tutorials.
Yeah.
Agora.
Yeah.
Agora has a great tutorial that I'm following on how to get characters into Unreal, how to set up the state machines and everything. So there is a lot of free stuff. I know there's a lot of crap on the internet, but there's a lot of good stuff.
A lot of good stuff. A lot of great stuff. And I'm gonna and I'm gonna ask you another question after this. I want to throw up Demille's question here. How often are you able to get it almost final on your first couple of passes? I'm assuming your action shot, because he's really big on action, combat shots and stuff like that. So I guess that's a good question. How much refining, how many passes does it usually take for you to get it to the point where, okay, I'm happy with this?
You know what? You're never happy with your shot, man. It's going forever.
You hear that, DeVille? You're never happy with your shot.
But sometimes you've got to make a decision and you've got to be like, man, I've got to divorce this shot now. But you know what? Like the free hit combo of that hybrid rig I did on my demo.
Yeah.
I was working while I was doing that. I was doing like an hour or 2 every evening. And that took me about, I reckon if I did that in one go, that would have taken me about five days. If I did it from 9 to 5.
Yeah.
The first day I planned the reference, break it down, and then I'd start blocking. And then the second day I would just start refining the blocking. So I put the keyframes in, then I put the breakdowns in, then I keep refining in stepped mode until I get it on twos. Basically, I try to make my animation look smooth when it's in stepped mode, so that when I come out of it and spline it, I don't have to do much editing.
Yeah.
So I try and keep it in step mode as much as I can. But you know what? When I was working at Lego, the one thing about Lego is we learned how to animate quickly at a good, decent standard because we had to get the games out pretty quick. You know, we're early stages of Lego. We were working, getting 3 games out a year. So I learned this. I didn't even do stepped. I was animating straight in spline.
Yeah.
But and then because Lego was quite, there was loads of animation. We had a shared library where we would reuse, and I got to work on Wolverine. So those special characters had like special moves. So when you have special characters, you can do like the 2 special moves and like double jumps and all that kind of stuff. So, but normally the other characters and the NPCs, you would just reuse a lot of the animations. And if they had like attachments like wings, like I animated Vulture, and I think that was a fresh animation actually. No, that wasn't. Some of it was reused. We had a shared animations folder for like, you know, when the character has to build bricks and stuff.
Yeah.
All characters would use the same animation, you know, like build bricks. So there would be some in the shared folder. But I would say, sorry, coming back to your question, when I polish, I just when I'm happy with my block and everything, I normally I might just spend a whole day, like 8 hours, just polishing stuff, you know. And that's not just going into graph editor. It could be a little bit of squash and stretch here and there, you know, a little bit of translation in the spine to give that extra, or in the neck to give that extra thing that wasn't there. Fingers, polishing the fingers a bit, you know, the face, adding that little bit more that wouldn't be there.
I would
The
figure it
extra,
would be really hard animating 2 characters interacting, obviously, with each other as opposed to, you know, one character, you know, you're animating one character, you know, whether it's games or whether it's films, just, you know, and making it believable to where, you know, you got the weight down, you got the hits down, and you got all the body mechanics down. When you're animating, obviously 2 characters, you're animating them both interacting with each other at the same time, right?
yeah, normally what you do, some people would have like proxy rigs just to get the timing right. You could even use a square. And this is where reference is so key. You got these really good, I forgot his name, on LinkedIn. He does a lot of fighting choreography. So make sure you get really good reference first. And then some animators work this way where they will block in like a square, and they would move the center of the square to the bottom. So the bottom bit acts as the hips basically.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that, but it's preference. And then you're just trying to feel out the timing, right, of the shot and the camera shots and stuff like that. And you do have to. Some people get the hips right, and then they start working on the posing, right? I know there's one guy who's got his whole legs in FK and just concentrates on the hips, gets that right, make sure it's all moving properly, it's all in frame with the choreography and everything. Some animators will get the actual character in when they start refining, and what you're doing, it's better to have both characters in because you want to animate them so they're kind of moving together, kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
so you got the line of action working through each other.
Yeah, you got to have them, show them interacting believably with each other to do it, I would think.
Sort of flow, kind of, you know, like, and there's a contrast. Like if one person's punching this way, the other person's reversal will be that way. So the line of actions, there's always this contrast between both of them. They're not doing the same kind of poses each time, right? That's what kind of will sell to the eye as well. So when you're doing a punch, you're making that line of action kind of go through the other guy's pose, and like it's kind of like connecting, you know, like the arcs of the body going through the other body. You see that in Transformers art sometimes, like, you know, when, for example, if I remember there was one with Starscream where I think it was Starscream where grabbed hold of this transformer, and as he was holding onto a helicopter, he went up, but the line of action went through the whole characters of him and the little one, right?
Yeah.
The little character he had, and it just kind of had that wave drag effect going through the whole character. So
Yeah.
sometimes you could see both of them as the whole character.
Yeah.
So the line of
Almost
action
like
that
a
went,
ripple, almost like a ripple effect that,
yeah, yeah,
the action ripples out through the starting point and ripples through, their line of action into the next character and how it ripples out.
exactly. You're just getting that. Like, it could be a line of action in the punch, and then that goes through the other person. You have to see it. It's hard to explain, like, but it's like it's all connected, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
It's a
principle, the
lot.
drag,
And
and
like you said,
everything.
it's a craft,
Maybe I'm not
as you
explaining
know, in and of itself to me.
but you just basically you're seeing it as one character kind of as well.
Yeah.
They're interacting, and it's animation is reacting. So I would
I'm
advise, get those both characters in the scene.
I'm curious, and I'm wanting to ask you, kind of your thoughts on where you see the gaming industry going in the future. We're starting to, see a lot of mixed reality, kind of playing into it. Curious what your thoughts on, especially since it's from the game perspective, what you thought about Arcane and how they transitioned that game into a film. All this stuff that, like you said, is opening up for gaming, as far as just bleeding into this experience. Not only a experiential thing for the player, but just almost like a film in and of itself, before they even drop you into the game, how games are starting to really evolve over this time.
Yeah. Oh, Kane, man, I can go on about that. Blue Samurai as well.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Love Death Robots. Oh, I think that's what's happening now. Spider Verse started it all, right?
yeah.
I can't believe it. Stuff Spider Verse came out in 2018, and I didn't even watch it until like last year. I can't
Wow.
believe that. I was sitting down watching it. I was watching this, man. I was thinking, how the hell did I miss this, man? First, when I watched it, I was like, what is this, man? This is just amazing. Like this comic style. I've never
Yeah,
seen this before, like 3D, 2D mix. And
yeah,
then obviously
yeah,
Arcane was absolutely amazing, like,
yeah.
but they had a massive budget. They had
Yeah, they had a
130 million.
massive budget, but and I'm glad you said that because it brings me back to this point, which I am starting to ask creators now because we are in this period. What did Flow and the Oscar win that Flow got? What did that mean for you as an animator and a creator? I'm curious. Because I can give my thoughts, but I'm just curious. What did that say to you?
That there's hope. There's hope. No, I think it just shows that what we're this medium we're in animation. You got the power to send your message to the whole world. Especially with like YouTube and stuff.
Oh
It's just
man, and it
and
doesn't
that's not
take a
better.
software
No
like, and
barrier.
it doesn't take a software necessarily like Maya to do that. I mean, Maya, yeah, is industry standard, but obviously you see it's a tool, and it's really the creator behind the tool that makes the difference.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, definitely. It's exactly, these are all it's mediums, right? It could be stop motion, traditional, 3D. Everything comes down to story and characters. I
yeah.
mean, without getting too deep, I just finished reading. I don't know if you know Leo Tolstoy. I just started. I just started reading his Russian
Oh yeah,
author.
Toy Story. Yeah, yeah. Okay, I haven't read
Tolstoy.
it, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I just one evening I just thought, who are considered by scholars the best authors in the world. And I just thought, let me just see. For some reason, and I was looking at the Russian literature. Obviously, there's Dostoevsky,
Yeah.
who was more on the psychological side, but Tolstoy came on top. I go, why is he so good? And then I read his book, Anna Karenina. I've never read an 800-page book in like 2 months. I've never. Takes me a year sometimes to read that.
Yeah.
I read that in just over 2 months, and I'm moving on to War and Peace, which is 1,400 pages.
Yeah.
And I'm not. I don't care about the length. His writing, his characters, and it's the same for animation.
Yeah.
It's characters. You
Yeah.
look at Shakespeare, Chekhov, and Anton Chekhov, another Russian short
Yeah.
stories. It all relates to animation. The thing with Tolstoy is you are the character in the book, man. It's just I'm thinking, how is this person writing like this on each page? He's making me turn the pages like, and it's just I've been that person. You feel like there's empathy. I've been that person. I've been that person, and it's not didactic. It's like he doesn't let you judge the characters. You judge them yourself. He
Yeah.
leaves it to you. And I mean, even War and Peace, I'm 20 pages in, and I'm reading that. I thought, let me just read these two, what I considered by most scholars the best. War and Peace is
Yeah.
considered
The
one of the
best
best
book
modern.
ever. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm reading.
Uh,
I'll get through that in 2-3 months. Watch, man. I'm really getting into it. So read books and characters, and just develop those characters and put them in your work as well. Like
yeah.
take from real life. All he's done is taken from real life. All his work in Anna Karenina and War and Peace is basically around his families, because he was born in aristocracy, and then he became a pheasant. He left everything by the time he was 82. He renounced that, man. It's like he just kept stripping everything away, and it's in his books, and it's amazing, man. It's just an amazing book. If you can read it, get the time and trouble out to read it. Really, man, I recommend that.
Comes like you said, it always comes down to story, and like I said, I think you have to be a master storyteller if you can hold an audience's attention without any audio at all. His movie didn't have any dialogue, so that says a lot right there. It's just the fact that he's a great storyteller. It's just so, like I said, when you hear the whole behind the scenes of him and just the making of, it's so inspiring on so many levels. Just the fact that he's pretty much self-taught. That was his first movie working with a team. All his other movies he's done by himself. He rendered pretty much most of the movie on his laptop. Just the whole thing.
My God.
It's just
Was
like,
he based in Latvia? He was based in Latvia.
yeah, he's from Latvia. And they're the first, he's the first animation Oscar from Latvia that ever won, an Oscar or anything. So just his whole story, and like I said, they were pretty much making the movie as they were making the movie type of thing. Yeah. He was pretty much learning Blender along with making the movie. So it's just, like I said, just a great story all the way down as far as just being an independent creator. You don't need Maya. You don't need this. You don't need audio to create or dialogue to create a great story. Yeah. You don't need all the things that you think you need to create something amazing that people will love and that you'll get recognized for. It's just do it, just do it.
Do it and don't worry about perfection, and document. There's 3 books I've got. Still by Austin Kleon, Still Like an Artist, Keep Going, and what's the other one? Keep Going, Still Like an Artist, Keep Going, and Show Your Work.
Yeah.
And he says document your work. Even if you're a student, document. Because what's the first thing employers do now when they get your name? They Google you, right?
Yeah.
So if you can, like I was nervous on doing my own YouTube video, putting my face out there, because you're thinking, oh, what will my family members think? What will my friends think? They're going to take the mick out of me. But no one cares, man. No one cares. Everyone's got their own problems, Just do your work. And when you get your personality out there, you get interviewers looking at your personality. They want to look at your YouTube video. So if they see you the way you are, that's half of the interview done. They've seen your personality. They want to see if you fit into the company, the culture. Yeah. And if you already got that out there, they see half of that. So I would say document your work. Don't be afraid. Don't worry about the final piece. Show the progress.
Yeah,
that's what they're more interested.
What they want to see. That you can problem solve through something and figure it out. And it was funny. Somebody else had said that one of my first guests this year, Jonathan Winbush. We were talking about it. We were talking about AI, and he was just saying, yeah, AI is great, but it's kind of a quick answer to something. Most people don't take the time to problem solve something first before they go to, oh, let me just, plop it into AI and see what AI puts out, as opposed to sitting down trying. And it stuck with me, like that, as far as like just learning. He said, I like to learn software, just problem solving stuff before, and see if I can figure it out before I go try and Google it or try and find a video to learn it. Let me see if I can figure out what it is I want to try and do. It made me think about that as far as like how I approach when I sit down to try and learn, something. You're quick to want to go to YouTube and just watch it and learn it, as opposed to trying to problem solve. And that's really what people, like I said, if you post videos of you problem solving your way through a design or something like that, along with the end result, that's what they want to see more than anything else, type of thing. The behind the scenes. It's funny because there's I follow him. He does some cool motion graphics. Kevin Perry, and all this stuff will be in the show notes, people. So make sure. But he's a motion graphics artist and does works for a lot of big companies doing motion graphics and viral videos type of stuff. But that's what he says. The majority of people, they don't, they really want to see how you did it. And the process you went through to make the final shot. Yeah, the final shot can wow them, but what'll stick with them more is if you show them how you did it and just the whole process of that. He says that's where viral content comes in, showing people how you did it, not the end result will really get people.
You're right, yeah, because when I did that breakdown of the free hit combo, it got the most views because because you showed the reference. And then, I mean, that's what initially sparked my lecturer in Bournemouth to say, can you give a talk like that at a workshop then? So you're right, it's the process, because they want to learn, isn't it? And it's like, and now with the information age we're living in, everyone gives away information. It's good, everyone's sharing. All used to be hidden,
And trust me, those ones that do that, trust me, they're still selling their share of paid courses that they do. But they give out their share just to show people, hey, I know what I'm talking about, know what I'm doing. If you want to learn more on how to do this, I have this paid course you can buy. And that's why I say, creators, they've gotten savvier now, knowing that, hey, we need to be a little bit more business-minded thinking and entrepreneurial thinking as how we can monetize our skill in so many different areas, in so many different spots.
Exactly. And the other thing is, you work in the industry, but just remember, when you're working in the industry, you're working on someone else's dream.
Yeah.
Right. So, like you're saying, artists have to be a bit more business savvy, not because it's money, it's because money gives you your time back.
Yeah. And it gives you options.
Loads of money. You just enough money not to worry about your bills, that you can work on your own art full time. This is what we're doing. We just want our time back. What are we doing? We're exchanging our time for money, working on someone else's dream. And really, what I say to students is start working on your own stuff. Like I've started like I was showing the character, little yogi kid that I'm working on, a little demo. I'm trying to get, obviously, with all that experience, how the industry works. So then, you can how it works. You can do your own stuff. And if you do get funding, okay, I know what to do. I know I need environment artists. I know I need coders and all that. You work in the industry for 5, 6 years, get to know how it is, how it works, get that experience. And then I really encourage people, students, just try and do your own thing. Don't worry about failing, man. Do your own thing, get a team together. And the future does look more community-based, independent. Document your work, get a YouTube channel. Don't have to show your face. Document your work. Just have a camera out. If you're shy like that, that's fine. Yeah. But just show your work, man. Because opportunity.
I mean, like you said, it's great, and I say the same thing. It's great. If your end goal is you want to work for Pixar, or you want to get into the big studios, or you want to work for a studio, that's fine. But just know, like I said, you're competing with millions of other people trying to get the same position. Until that happens, work on your own stuff and put your own stuff out there. You may be surprised, like I said, if it hits, where that will open up, what that'll open up for you, type of thing. Now, again, I get it. Not everybody is self-driven like that to do that. They'd rather just, like I said, get a job, 9 to 5, get a check, and be good with that. But in these kind of times that we're living in, it's tough to depend on one revenue stream forever, and count on that. It's,
My
I don't know
dad's
if you want to, nowadays do that.
no, but like I say, my dad came to the UK in the 70s. He worked in the railways.
Yeah.
He worked in the railways. He could afford to buy a house, and my mum didn't work. But you can't. Youngsters can't do
Can't
that.
do that now. It's hard to do that
They
nowadays.
can't stick to one job for 40 years. It doesn't work like that now. There's a lot of job hopping going on. And the longest company I worked for is Warner Brothers Lego. That was 11 years. But since then, it's been like 4 layoffs, redundancies, and freelance, and it's just the way the industry is going now. It's so really, man. If you can do your own stuff, if you've got an idea. I was watching an interview by Stephen King. I was just checking out writing because I'm writing about this game on. And he said, "How do you know you have a good idea?" The interviewer said, "How do you know if you have a good idea?" He said, "Because if the idea keeps playing in your head over and over again, then do something about that idea, So that's a good way to recognize, then expand on it." And he writes characters where there's a term for it, where he basically writes as the characters come. He reveals them. There's a term for it. I forgot it at the moment. It's in my mind. And then he said it's like you're pulling a string from underneath the floor, and you keep pulling and pulling and pulling. You're making new characters, this and that, just writing as it comes, developing new characters, and just write. I'm starting to write every day now. Could be anything. Could be just word vomit onto the pad. Just write your thoughts every day. Make it a habit. 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day.
And I had asked some friends of mine that too, because I'm trying. I'm not a writer, but I am trying to get better at writing. For the ideas that come into my head. But it's like I asked her, it's like, how do you become a writer? She said, just start writing. Just sit down and start.
Well, it's like Chuck Jones. Chuck Jones says,
the stuff is going to be crap, coming out, but you just got to start writing and just, just let it'll start to come. Like you said, with, the 3D, there'll be at some point when it clicks. If you do it enough, it'll click. At some point, things will click for you. So it's just, I'm trying to get better myself at writing, but letting the story and the characters just, flow and you realize that's, where it all comes from. What's the story, and I will say this about Pixar. They were great at story. That's why all their films are good, because they focus on story first, and then everything else is second. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Chuck Jones said in his book, Looney Tunes, was it? He said, "You want to be a good animator? Draw 500,000 drawings. Then do another 500,000 bad drawings. Drawings," he said, "to get the bad stuff out,
Yeah.
And it's like anything, learning an instrument, anything. It's gonna be hard at the start. It's like me when I did my fitness transformation. It's hard at the start going to the gym, but once you start building, there's a great book, Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Yeah, Atomic Habits. Yeah, getting into those small little habits.
That book really, you get 1% better every day. That's all it is. Just change your environment. Where I used to have my snacks and foods, I changed everything, and that's how I managed to get ripped in 9 months. Obviously I had a coach as well who was held me accountable.
Yeah.
But I changed my environment, made sure the snacks weren't where they used to be, had only healthy snacks in the fridge and all this kind of stuff. And same thing with animation, you just have an environment where there's less distractions. There's a stopwatch. Was it Pandora? Is it there's an analogy.
Yeah.
Pomodoro, something like that.
Pomodoro.
Yeah.
Yeah, where you work
Yeah,
for a certain period of time and then you take a break and
do that
pop in.
block for 20 minutes, then have a break, come back. You know, I know as animators you can get kind of when you really get into your work. When I was first learning animation, I was doing it all night in my parents, blocking. But we had to get assignments in an animation mentor
Yeah,
every week,
yeah,
so I would be like working till 5 in the morning. But
yeah.
when you're young, you have that. You know, when you're first new to animation,
Yeah, you
you
first
have
get
that
into it,
energy,
you got
right?
all the gusto and everything.
You have that energy, yeah. And like when you're a student, you got no responsibility, so you just got that freedom, isn't it? You can just put all your hours in. You're living with your
Oh
parents,
man.
you
Well,
know.
now how do you balance work, family, keeping yourself mentally, engaged to where you don't burn out, the type of thing. You like you said you were on your physical journey as well. How did you balance and how do you kind of balance all of these things?
Now with game studios, they're very much like conscious. I've noticed they're a lot more conscious with work-life balance. And it's really, I don't know how it is in the States, but here it's really like there's a big thing about that. You
Yeah.
know, when I was at Lego, you could see in the kitchen in the notice board they would have like lessons on mindfulness and exercising. People would come in at lunch from outside companies and do the circuits or something like that. They encourage you. The company I was at was encouraging me. They're paying me £50 a month for my gym membership. So I think now, as I've been in the industry for a while, I just do my hours and that's it. I don't do overtime.
Yeah.
And all the companies, I mean, all the companies I've been at recently, they don't want you to do that. They want you to, and I noticed when you got kids, they do seem to be a bit more. Like sometimes I say, look, I need to drop my kid off to school now. Yeah, they're fine with it. Like
Yeah.
they're a bit more wary of that, aware of those things now. Then there's
Gotcha.
probably some companies out there that are still might not be like that, but it's moving towards a more flexible working hour kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah. It's
But
kind of a
they're more
tug and
like women
pull.
get to work. They
Yeah,
don't
it's
mind.
kind of a tug and pull here. You got, some companies that, like I said, they're, still, they made that shift after the pandemic that, people are, they want that kind of work from hybrid, home
Mm.
type of thing. But then you got a few companies that are like, okay, pandemic's over, we want you back in the office type of thing as
Yeah.
well. Fortunately, I work for the prior, but yeah, I think it's a sign of the times that we live in or that we're in now, where people are working remote, teams are working remote, which is even more challenging. How do you manage and work on these big projects, big game projects, big film projects where a good chunk of the people are working remotely and you're having to coordinate, all these people and all these things, for sure. Whether they're the types of, you like combat, you say you like combat games. What are the types of games that you're kind of hoping to sink your teeth into, or would you like to see, that you haven't kind of seen yet,
Uh,
as far as a combat game? And like I said, keep in mind, again, what we were talking about as far as thinking forward with mixed reality kind of coming into play, VR kind of coming into play with gaming and where it could go. I know it's still early,
mm.
relatively early with VR and gaming, but where it could go, and I'm pretty sure you've seen Ready Player One, and how it could be as far as gaming and avatars and engaging in games.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny, like when you mentioned because we went to last 2 weeks ago, we went to Legoland and we went on this VR ride, and it was brilliant. It was like the Simpsons ride in Universal Studios I went to. It's like a
Yeah,
roller coaster. It's amazing, and you can feel it in your stomach, everything. Um, it's a t- I don't know. You know what? To be honest, I don't play as much games as I was just always an animator, right? So
No.
I don't play as much games. But the only games I play is like God of War or
Yeah.
Black Myth. You know,
Well,
like those.
from a creator's point of view,
Mm.
where do you see like the future of gaming, and again, how VR and how some of the mixed reality will play into the
VR.
creation of games?
Yeah, VR will be. I think it's in its early stages, but in games, but it's getting there. But having that fully immersed experience, you know, actually in the game, yeah, that's only gonna technology is only improving. That's only gonna get better, you know.
No.
But I think in terms of animation, in the last 20 years, I'll be honest with you, there's not much that has changed because the principles of animation are still the same, right?
Right.
You know, when you animate, there's been a lot of breakthrough in the cutscenes and
Yeah.
performance capture, and all that, mocap and everything like that. But I
Well,
just
do
see
you
it.
see games? Do you see more games making that jump, like Fortiche and Arcane, taking a game asset and kind of fleshing out the characters as a whole into a bigger world type of thing, to where film or something like that?
Oh yeah, there'll always be adaptations of games. I think like there's another League of Legends coming out, isn't it? Which is it's not the Arcane, it's another one.
Mm,
Um, yeah, I think that's always good from an economic point of view for
yeah,
companies, isn't it, to do that? But
yeah,
yeah, I mean, Last of Us, the adaptation, isn't it, of a Netflix series on that. So
yeah,
you will get those if they Harry Potter's another one, isn't it? Right? There'll be those opportunities there. But I don't know, games. I mean, the graphics are getting better, right? Like technology is getting better. The visuals
yeah,
will get better,
yeah,
and gameplay from where it was 2005 to where it is now.
yeah, yeah.
Great.
As you can
My
tell,
first
I'm
game was
old
heavily
school, so I've seen this big transition from Pong, the little
yeah,
blip
yeah,
going
yeah.
back and forth,
Pac-Man, Pac-Man, brilliant.
to Pac-Man. To That's why, like I said, it's seeing this transition of technology and how things have changed over time has been really interesting and fascinating. And seeing
Yeah.
the growth of where we go, what we thought was entertaining,
Mm.
and now we look at it, it's like, I don't know why I was scared of that. And it's a guy in a rubber suit with a zipper. You can clearly see the zipper, going down the back. But back then it was the big thing. So now we're seeing all these animations and effects that are, almost indistinguishable from real,
Mm.
type of thing. And like you said before, we're seeing all these different styles, mixture and meld of 2D, 3D type of thing. That's why it's such a great time. It's such a fascinating time as a creator, and seeing
Yeah,
all these things, and all these great tools in the hands of these creatives, creators, and the things that come out. It's amazing to see.
yeah. I mean, I was just watching on Prime that Shield, that Blur Studios
Mm,
they did.
mm,
I mean, I'm a big fan of Games Workshop, Warhammer 40K, and that episode was amazing. You know
yeah,
that they had in, and then the second episode, which was a more arcane style 2D.
yeah,
It was to do with the Japanese. I think it was a samurai or something.
yeah.
It was amazing. The rest was really 3D based, but I love those stylized ones. The ones with the 2D effects in it. It's
And I
brilliant.
think that's the beauty of this time, and the tools that we have. You're getting all these people, all these creators, that are taking these tools that may not necessarily have been created for what it is that they're using it for, and they use it for something totally different. Like I said, I don't think you know until filmmakers got a hold of Unreal thought that wow, okay, filmmakers can use this to create a virtual environment. It's when a filmmaker got a hold of it and said, wow, maybe I can use this to create a virtual environment type of thing. So it's taking something that just and using it in a totally different way that opens up this totally different industry and opportunity type of thing. And now, like I said, Unreal, which was a gaming engine, is this massive thing that filmmakers can get a hold of, or creators can get a hold of, and create real time, playback type of thing. So it's great time and a lot of great tools out there. And like I said, just watching what innovative creators create with those tools is a fun thing to see. And these things that come out, that's why you love and root for, like I said, creators like Flow that do things differently than the norm. Pixar, Disney, they'll always pretty much have a movie that's nominated every year. But, you got a lot of people creating a lot of different types of animations that are well told, obviously, like Flow and like the Wild Robot, just different stories that are just more appealing type of thing. And now that you have all these tools like, social channels and tools like Blender, Unreal, all these other tools that are free or low cost that, like I said, you can create some amazing things if you just, sit down and create.
Yeah, take the time and trouble out to learn, and and different cultures have accessibility now to
Yeah.
show their stories, isn't it? Different
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah. And that's why, like I said, it's an explosion now, with the advent of the internet. It makes this level playing field. And I think that's where this big shift is going to come, not from these big studios, like Disney, like Sony. They're great studios, but they're massive. They've been around a while, and they've carved out this niche that's very hard for them to get out of. So a company like Netflix, which is really small and nimble compared to Disney, compared to
Yeah,
Sony, they could take these chances and put these more edgier, because they're not locked into a style like Disney is. Disney
yeah,
couldn't put Arcane. Disney wouldn't put Arcane, or Blue Eyed Samurai as something out. They're
yeah,
locked within there. So I think it's these creators and small independent companies and smaller companies that are willing to take these chances on more different kind of stories and narratives from different types of people. Those are the ones that are going to do really well, I think, and make these big shifts that are going to force a lot of these bigger companies now to make
yeah,
a shift.
yeah. And also the world is changing now. It's becoming a more multipolar world. You look at the BRIC initiatives. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa,
Yeah.
and other nations are joining that now. Now you're seeing these massive trade wars going on with the US. You know, if we be honest, the US empire is falling now. And the China it's the East is rising now,
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
China was always a superpower
Yeah.
until the Opium Wars, right? Until Britain literally flooded it with opium and
Yeah.
created drug out our Chinese, and then the Opium Wars happened. But China was China had printing presses 700 years
Oh yeah.
before Europe.
Yeah.
Cheng
It's
Ho
gonna be.
sailed the seven seas before Columbus did. So there's this. The world is coming back to a normal balance as it was prior empire, I guess. Like
Yeah.
where it was before. So I don't know what's going to happen. It's turbulent times, but
It's gonna be
either
interesting. It
yeah,
really is, especially on this end,
yeah,
because of all the tariffs and U.S. It's been so long since we've been a creator economy. We've been more a consumer economy as far as just the materials. We don't have raw materials like a lot of the other countries do. Like, the East, Saudi Arabia, they have oil. Africa has their wealth and their riches. We don't, we pretty much everything is made outside the country here in this country. So I don't know how that's going to work with trying to tax, and then
but
we're
that's why
not going to
everything is
feel it.
expensive in the UK because
Yeah.
we rely on exports.
Yeah. I mean, we live off of more exports than we do in, things that are naturally made here. And it's going to be interesting to see, because I can't imagine, who was it? Somebody was joking. I think it was Dave Chappelle. was joking about. He's like, I'm not trying to pay no $9,000 for an iPhone.
Yeah. You need them in China where they're supposed to be. Yeah. No one wants to work
He's
that
right.
hard.
So
I,
I'm
I
like,
remember
okay,
that.
we're gonna see how this plays out. We really are. So it's
Yeah.
interesting times, but regardless, I always say, regardless of who's in, who's out of the administration, as a creator, we have, like I said, now these all these great tools to control our own destiny. If that's your choice to do that, and do really well, and like I said before, trust me, if you do that and spend the time doing that and build a following, trust me, the big companies will come and knocking on your door to purchase whatever it is that you do, whether it's a web series or hire you or get you to write, whatever it is. If you make and create your big own following and it's a loyal following,
Yeah.
they'll
It doesn't
come
have to be big
knocking.
either. Doesn't it? Sorry,
It
John. I was going to
doesn't.
say.
It really doesn't. I believe in the thousand. I believe in the thousand. True fans. A person
Yeah,
really only needs 1,000 true fans that'll support the things that you do, and that's it. And trust me, like I said, if they see you got an audience of millions, like Mr. Beast, they'll come and
we'll come
knocking
from
on your
it.
door. They
He did
will
all
come
right,
and
so,
knocking.
didn't he?
But I've heard too many times of how people have, even people that have gotten jobs at studios, they've gotten it because they posted their work online, and somebody from the studio or somebody was, because trust me, they're doing those studio execs and hiring people. They're doing the same thing you are, surfing the web, trying to see content and who's creating content, and if they can find somebody that's creating some amazing content, they're going to reach out. And like I said, I know a lot of people, they working at big studios because, hey, they just saw my content that I was posting and somebody reached out to me.
Yeah, we
Um,
have we have control in our preparation, so we can prepare the best we can, isn't it? So
yeah, yeah,
just take con- just take the decision of what you have control over, and really, give it 100%. Just learn, get the right mentors as well. It's very important. You can always practice the wrong thing and become perfect at it. So
that is so true.
you want to get mentors is really important. In my experience, I found, man,
Yeah,
that one
yeah,
mental click, you'll
yeah.
get
And
there.
I was gonna ask you, as we, like I said, we've been talking for almost 2 hours here. We're going
Well,
up
man,
on hour 2 here. Definitely, as like I said, bring in the ship and everything. Uh, I did want to ask you, what would be that one good chunk of advice that you would tell somebody that, hey, Opie, I want to be a character animator, game character animator too. What would be that one good chunk of piece of advice that you would tell them?
I would say, get a good mentor first. Learn the basics, fundamentals, like we say in the bouncing ball. And really, if you've got a pull and a desire, that's the main thing. You're halfway there. The discipline and work, like any art form, you need discipline. It's not going to happen overnight. And the reason I say that is because recently I did a podcast with a friend of mine who's at Pixar. He's a senior animator there, and he said to me, I didn't plan to work at Pixar. It doesn't work like that. Oh, I'm going to be an animator, and then I'm going to apply for Pixar. I'm going to get a job. He said it doesn't work like that. Sometimes these things happen organically. But what he said was, all I know is all these people that have worked at these massive, really good games animation companies is they've worked really, really hard to get there. Yes, there are people who that recommend you jobs here and there, but your work will show as well. If you just concentrate on that, concentrate on your art, and really get good mentors to teach you the right methods and practice every day. Depending on what you want to do, whether it's acting, on body mechanics, games. If it's games, do cycles, combat shots, like we're talking about catering your showreel to a certain studio. networking events, going to networking events, using your initiative, showing your work regularly, getting feedback. You know, if you can show your work regularly and get feedback from experienced animators or any artists, that shows that you're willing to work in a team as well. Because a lot of the times your ego can get in the way, and if companies find out about that, they don't really want to work with you, no matter how good you might be. They, you know, if you don't get on with the team, that's also a big factor, which is not really talked about in schools, about the communication side of things. You know, when you're working, like when I got a, for example, when I got a boss fight in Lego, I had to work with a designer. I had to go to designer and ask, all right, how do you want this to work out? Okay, then you put your input in. All right, can I put this animation in? Do you think this will work? And they'll be like, yeah, this will work, that won't work. Okay, so I know all this will work. Then I'll go to the programmer. Can we get these mechanics to work? Do you think this can work? Can you block out the animations, work with the programmer? How does that feel? And then you start polishing the animation like that. So key things is get a good mentor. You know, learn the foundations really. Learn Maya or any 3D software. Get familiar with it. Then learn the foundations of animation, bouncing ball, principles of animation, and then learn what a good mentor, a good school, how to apply those principles to your animations, to your characters.
No,
And
that was
you'll have up and down. Sorry, man, you'll have like up
no.
and down. You know, we
Well,
all as a one of the rappers I like here, low key says he's got a track called "We All Rise and Fall on a Daily Basis." You know that
yeah,
happens.
that's
You
true.
just got to you get that, man. And then sometimes you'll get this burst of energy, creative energy, that then take advantage of that and do the work with it. You'll have moments like that, you know, where 2 months it's like, then it just like, oh, I don't want to do it. But then Mike Tyson says discipline is doing the things you hate doing, but doing it like you love it, right?
So, yeah,
But obviously
yeah.
we love animation, but sometimes there might be times where you have to fight
Well,
through it.
yeah, I'm sure everybody goes into it, even the ones that are doing, working at Pixar and, doing the animating, working on these amazing things. For them, yeah, it's a great job, but it is a job, just like any other job. And there are times where you're, not quite as enthused about going into work or doing the job, but you do it because it's your job and you're a professional at it. So, like I said, you have your ups and your down periods, but if you, for the most part, love what you do, even those down periods are not so down. I mean, they're part of it, but yeah.
Yeah. And just to add to that, one last thing, if you're studying, if you can get a group of, like we're talking, get a group of people together, do your own thing, really, man.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid. Do your own thing. You know, you're young, you can still take those chances, and don't be afraid to fail at them.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
I know it's a cliche thing. You learn more from your failures than you do with your successes, but it's true. You do.
it is.
Better to fail, man, and pick up and you learn from it, basically.
Trust me. And it'll make you all the better for when you do, get into a job. If that's your thing, you'll have learned a lot, just doing stuff on your own. And, on that piece of nugget, I have to drop a bomb on people that drop bombs of nuggets. So that was a great piece of nugget. Opi dropped. So, I got to drop a bomb on that. Like I said, we've been having a fun conversation with my man Opi Chaggar here. See character animator, game character animator, for sure. Definitely make sure that, as we close this out, make sure that you connect with Opi on his channels here. On all this stuff will be in the show notes once it gets up on the playlist and everything. But you can find him on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. He has a Discord channel. He also has a Maya mastery course. If you really want to learn Maya and really get into, the nuances of animating, you might want to check out his course there for sure. And definitely, like I said, this has been a fun conversation, and we didn't get into half the stuff. I never really do. When the conversations go like this, I never really get into all the questions and all the things I want to talk about, which is a good thing because it gives them the opportunity to come back. It gives me the opportunity to ask them back on the show, for sure. So I'm definitely looking forward to having Opi back on the show. for sure. But again, make sure you hop on over to the YouTube channel once it's up on the playlist to get connected with him and check out all the links in the show notes as well. Opi, I can't thank you enough, brother, for coming on and really having a fun conversation, man. And you know, you're always welcome back on the show. I can't wait to have you back on, brother.
Thank you. No, thank you for reaching out, man. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have known, man. So thank you so much for inviting me. It's always nice, man, to chat about stuff, isn't it? So experiences and
Love
sharing
talking
it.
about the industry, and like I said, we definitely didn't get into half of what I wanted to. If you could hang out in the green room while I close out the show, I'd appreciate it. That way we talk for a second afterwards. But everybody, again, please help me thank my special guest and friend, Opi Chaggar, again for coming on and blessing us with his talent and knowledge. Hang on for just a second, Opi, while I close this out.
Good night, everyone.
Man, this has been a great episode. Like I said, this second quarter is rolling along just amazingly. And like I said, each guest, you know, raises the bar more and more and more. And like I said, Opi just raised it tremendously for next week's guest for sure, which you don't want to miss out on. I'm super looking forward to my next guest, Ala Othman, another character animator that's going to stop by the studio, and we're going to have a fun conversation with him as well. So you definitely don't want to miss out on that. Again, if you are an animator, character animator, whether film or game, you definitely don't want to miss out. And also, you definitely want to make sure, if you're just coming in on the tail end of this, make sure you hop on over to the channel, the YouTube channel, check out the full episode. Like I said, my man Opi dropped a lot of great information and a lot of great knowledge. If you really want to get into game character animating, definitely check out this episode. All right. Like I said, this has been a fun episode, and I cannot thank you enough, as always, for giving me a little bit of your time on this Saturday afternoon. Definitely have a great rest of your weekend. For my U.S. brethren, I hope you have a great Easter tomorrow for those that celebrate Easter. And definitely have a productive rest of your week. And I will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Cheers, everybody.